Welcome to Glisso English. Real life stories.
Imagine walking into a room. You step through the door, the music stops, and every single eye turns to look at you. Why? Because everyone else is wearing shorts and t-shirts, and you are standing there in a full, formal tuxedo. It is the ultimate social nightmare, showing up to an event in the completely wrong outfit. How do you survive 4 hours of staring, whispering, and pure embarrassment without running out the door? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we are diving into a brand new story called The Wrong Outfit. As we follow our main character, Leo, through the most awkward 4 hours of his life, you are going to learn real-world English vocabulary, natural idioms for uncomfortable social situations, and phrasal verbs that native speakers use every day. By the end of this video, you won't just find out if Leo survives the party, you will also know exactly how to describe a major social blunder in fluent English. Grab a notebook, pay close attention to the expressions on the screen, and let's get started with Chapter 1.
Leo adjusted the rearview mirror of his car and smiled at his reflection. He looked sharp. He was wearing a classic black tuxedo, a crisp white shirt, and a perfectly tied silk bow tie. It was an expensive outfit, but Leo believed in making a great first impression. Today was his first social event with his new company. His boss, Mr. Harrison, had sent a digital invitation to the entire team for a weekend celebration at his home. The invitation said the party was to celebrate a major company milestone, but the dress code was left blank. Later that week, Leo saw a message in the team group chat. A coworker had joked about wearing formal gowns and suits to impress the executives. Leo took the joke completely seriously. He assumed a luxury corporate party required luxury clothing. Now he pulled up to Mr. Harrison's house in a quiet suburban neighborhood. He stepped out of his car, smoothed down his jacket, and walked toward the backyard gate where he could hear music playing. He took a deep breath, feeling confident and sophisticated. He pushed the wooden gate open and stepped into the yard. The music didn't actually stop, but in Leo's mind, everything went completely silent. He froze in his tracks. He looked around the yard in absolute horror. There were no gowns, there were no expensive suits. Mr. Harrison was standing next to a smoking barbecue grill wearing faded cargo shorts, flip-flops, and a graphic t-shirt. 50 coworkers were scattered across the grass holding paper plates and drinking lemonade in casual summer clothes. And right in the middle of them stood Leo, dressed for the Oscars.
Leo stood frozen by the entrance, his heart hammering against his ribs. Every muscle in his body urged him to turn around, sprint back to his car, and drive away. But it was too late. The rustle of his stiff tuxedo trousers seemed to echo across the entire lawn. A few coworkers near the drink cooler turned their heads, their conversations dying out instantly. Their eyes traveled slowly from Leo's polished leather shoes up to his silk bow tie. Leo felt a hot flush of crimson creep up his neck and color his cheeks. He tried to force a natural smile, but his facial muscles felt like carved stone. To his left, 2 interns quickly covered their mouths, failing to hide their sudden giggles. The contrast was brutal. Leo was a sharp, black-and-white monolith standing in a sea of bright floral shirts and faded denim. He desperately wished for a sudden thunderstorm or a minor earthquake to distract everyone. Instead, the bright afternoon sun beat down directly on him, acting like a giant, mocking spotlight. He took a tiny, agonizing step forward, feeling completely detached from his own feet. The smooth grass felt unnaturally soft beneath his stiff dress shoes. He clutched his car keys so tightly in his pocket that the metal dug into his palm. Just as he considered faking a sudden medical emergency to escape, a loud voice boomed from the center of the yard. Mr. Harrison had spotted him. The boss lowered his barbecue tongs, wiped his greasy hands on an apron, and began walking directly toward Leo.
Mr. Harrison stopped a few feet away, his eyes wide as he took in Leo's formal attire. A massive grin spread across the boss's face. "Well, look who decided to elevate our little backyard burger bash," Mr. Harrison boomed, laughing heartily. "Leo, I didn't realize we were filming a James Bond movie today, or I would have bought the expensive hot dogs." Several nearby co-workers burst into laughter, and Leo's face burned even hotter. He swallowed hard, trying to swallow his pride along with it. "I wanted to make sure I was respectful of the company milestone, sir," Leo managed to say, his voice sounding a bit tight. Mr. Harrison clapped Leo heavily on the shoulder, the rough gesture slightly shifting Leo's perfectly positioned shoulder pads. "I love the enthusiasm, Leo, really I do, but lose the jacket if you start melting out here, all right? Go grab a drink and mingle." The boss turned back to his grill, leaving Leo standing at the edge of the patio. The initial shock wave had passed, but the true ordeal was just beginning, surviving the next 3 hours. Leo slowly walked toward the long folding table that held the food and drinks. Every step felt like a tightrope walk over a canyon. He could feel the eyes of his teammates following his movements. He reached the cooler, opened the lid, and stared down at the ice and aluminum cans. Bending down in a tailored tuxedo jacket was incredibly difficult and stiff. He carefully reached in, his cufflink clicking against the side of a soda can. As he straightened up, he realized he had no idea where to look or what to do with his hands. He couldn't just stand by the cooler for the rest of the afternoon. He took a sip of his soda, took a deep breath, and turned around to face the crowded yard.
Leo held his cold soda can like a shield and scanned the yard for an open conversation. He spotted a group of 3 co-workers from the accounting department standing near a large oak tree. He recognized Marcus, a friendly guy he had shared an elevator with earlier that week. Leo took a slow, deliberate breath and walked over, trying to ignore the way his stiff shoes crunched loudly on the dry grass. As he approached, the group stopped talking and turned to face him, their expressions a mix of amusement and curiosity. "Hey guys," Leo said, forcing his voice to remain steady and casual. "Mind if I join you, or is this group restricted to people wearing casual clothes?" Marcus laughed, breaking the initial tension. "Not at all, Leo. Come on in," Marcus said, gesturing to the circle. "But you have to tell us, did you come straight from a wedding, or do you really love spreadsheets?" The other 2 co-workers smiled, waiting for his response. Leo decided his best strategy was to lean into the mistake rather than try to defend it. "Actually, I completely fell for the joke in the group chat about impressing the executives," Leo admitted, shaking his head. "I thought I was being smart, but clearly I missed the memo on the cargo shorts." The co-workers chuckled, and the tension in Leo's shoulders dropped a fraction of an inch. "Honestly, it's hilarious," a woman named Chloe said kindly. "And look on the bright side. Everyone in the company definitely knows your name now." "That is exactly what I was afraid of," Leo joked back, taking a sip of his soda. For the next 10 minutes, the conversation flowed naturally about ongoing projects and weekend plans. Leo started to think that maybe, just maybe, he could survive the rest of the afternoon without dying of embarrassment. But then, a stray beach ball from a nearby game of volleyball bounced sharply across the lawn and headed straight for them.
The stray beach ball bounced directly towards the accounting group, spinning fast. Before anyone could move, Marcus reached out and slapped the ball back into the air toward the volleyball court. Unfortunately, Marcus's hand also struck Chloe's plastic cup, which was full of bright red fruit punch. The cup flipped forward, sending a small wave of sticky crimson liquid flying through the air. Time seemed to slow as Leo watched the red droplets arc gracefully across the sunny sky. He tried to step backward, but his stiff dress shoes slid slightly on the slick grass. With a soft pattering sound, a dozen bright red spots splattered directly across the center of Leo's pristine white dress shirt. Chloe gasped, covering her mouth in horror, while Marcus froze with his arms still extended. "Oh my goodness, Leo, I am so sorry," Marcus stammered, looking frantically around for napkins. Leo looked down at his chest, where the red stains were quickly expanding against the bright white fabric. It looked like a miniature crime scene right over his heart. To make matters worse, the heavy wool of his black tuxedo jacket was starting to trap the afternoon heat, causing him to sweat. The mixture of warm sweat and sticky fruit punch made the starched collar feel like a band of sandpaper around his neck. "It's fine, it's totally fine," Leo said, trying to keep the panic out of his voice, though his heart was racing again. "It's just adding some color to the outfit, right?" Chloe quickly grabbed a handful of paper napkins from the food table and handed them to him. Leo dabbed at the stains, but the cheap paper only smeared the red liquid deeper into the expensive fibers. He was now standing in a crowded backyard barbecue, wearing a tuxedo covered in red punch and melting in the sun. He needed to escape the crowd immediately to clean up, or at least to find a dark corner to hide in. He excused himself from the group and began walking quickly towards the side of the house, looking for a bathroom or an outdoor sink.
Leo walked quickly around the corner of the house, away from the loud music and the crowded lawn. He found a small, shaded patio near the side door, completely hidden from the rest of the party. He leaned against the brick wall, closed his eyes, and took a long, deep breath of cool air. "Rough day at the office?" a quiet voice asked from the shadows. Leo snapped his eyes open and saw a woman sitting on a wooden bench nearby. It was Sarah, a graphic designer from the marketing team, whom Leo had seen in virtual meetings but never met in person. She was wearing a beautiful, formal navy blue dress, but as Leo looked down, he noticed she was wearing neon green running sneakers. Leo couldn't help but smile at the strange combination. "I could ask you the same thing," Leo said, gesturing toward her bright green shoes. Sarah laughed and held up a broken black high heel from the ground beside her. "The heel snapped off in the grass on my very first step into the yard," Sarah explained, shaking her head. "I had these old running shoes in my car trunk, so it was either this or walk around barefoot all day." Leo let out a genuine laugh, the tension finally leaving his shoulders. "Well, at least your clothes match the casual vibe better than mine," Leo said, pointing to his stained shirt and bow tie. "I looked at a joke in the group chat and decided a tuxedo was perfect for a backyard barbecue." Sarah looked at his red-stained shirt and chuckled softly. "Honestly, the red punch actually adds a nice pop of color," she joked. "But seriously, don't worry about it. Everyone is too busy eating burgers to care for long." For the first time since arriving, Leo felt completely relaxed as they chatted about their embarrassing starts to the party. Finding someone else who felt out of place made the entire situation feel much smaller and easier to handle.
While Leo and Sarah were laughing, the side door of the house suddenly opened. A tall man in an expensive gray business suit stepped out onto the patio, holding a cell phone. He looked stressed, but his eyes lit up the moment he spotted Leo's sharp tuxedo jacket and black bow tie. "Oh, thank goodness," the man said, walking quickly toward Leo and extending his hand. "You must be the senior representative from the regional office that Harrison mentioned." Leo blinked in surprise, his hand automatically reaching out to shake the man's firm grip. Before Leo could correct him, the man kept talking at lightning speed. "I'm Arthur Vance from the Capital Investment Group," the man explained, looking relieved. "Harrison told me this was a casual barbecue, so I arrived late, but then I saw everyone in shorts and thought I had the wrong address. But seeing you standing here in formal attire tells me I'm in the right place for the executive briefing." Leo caught Sarah's eye for a split second, and she gave him a subtle, encouraging nod. Leo realized he had a choice. He could admit he was just a confused employee who couldn't read a dress code, or he could play along. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Vance," Leo said, straightening his posture and using his best professional tone. "Yes, Mr. Harrison likes to keep the main event relaxed, but we believe in maintaining high standards." Arthur Vance smiled broadly, completely overlooking the faint red punch stains on Leo's shirt because the black jacket hid them so well. "Excellent," Vance said, gesturing toward the main yard. "Let's walk together. I'd love to get your thoughts on the new market expansion project before I speak with Harrison." Leo took a deep breath, adjusted his cuffs, and stepped out of the shadows and back into the crowd, walking side by side with the most important guest at the party. Leo walked back onto the main lawn alongside Arthur Vance, feeling a sudden surge of confidence. The coworkers who had been smirking earlier now watched in surprise as the company's VIP client chatted animatedly with Leo. Leo listened carefully to Vance's questions about the expansion project and answered with clear, professional insights. His formal attire, which had felt like a heavy prison just an hour ago, now felt like armor. After a 10-minute conversation, Mr. Harrison spotted them and walked over, looking amazed to see his new employee talking seamlessly with the investor. "Arthur, you found Leo," Mr. Harrison said, his eyes darting between Vance's suit and Leo's tuxedo. "Vance was just praising our commitment to professionalism, Mr. Harrison," Leo said with a smooth smile. Vance clapped Leo on the shoulder and turned to the boss. "Harrison, this young man represents the exact image of dedication this company needs," Vance said warmly. "I have another meeting to catch, but let's finalize that investment deal next week." After Vance walked away toward his car, Mr. Harrison turned to Leo, shaking his head in sheer disbelief. "Leo, I don't know if you're a genius or just incredibly lucky," the boss chuckled, clapping him on the back. "But you just saved my biggest deal of the quarter, looking like a movie star." Feeling completely vindicated, Leo walked over to the edge of the lawn where a casual game of ping pong was happening. He finally took off his heavy tuxedo jacket, carefully draped it over a lawn chair, and unbuttoned his top collar button. He rolled up his white sleeves, revealing the red punch stains, but he no longer cared about hiding them. He picked up a paddle, looked at his stunned coworkers, and said, "Who's next?"
The afternoon sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a warm, golden glow across the backyard. The initial tension of the day had completely melted away, replaced by the soft chatter of relaxed conversations and clinking glasses. Leo stood by the patio, holding a fresh drink and laughing with a group of managers who had spent the last hour asking for his career advice. His tuxedo jacket remained draped over the chair, and his rolled-up sleeves gave him the look of a hard-working executive who knew how to enjoy a success. As the clock crept toward the 4-hour mark, people began gathering their things and heading toward the exit. Nearly every coworker who passed Leo stopped to shake his hand, smile, or offer a playful salute. "Great playing today, James Bond," Marcus called out with a wave as he walked toward the gate. Chloe smiled and nodded in agreement. "And sorry again about the shirt, Leo. You wore it well." Leo waved back, genuinely touched by how welcoming everyone had become once he stopped hiding. Mr. Harrison walked over to the center of the patio, holding up a glass of lemonade to catch everyone's attention before they left.
Before we wrap things up today, I want to thank you all for celebrating this milestone, the boss boomed, smiling at the crowd. And a special shout out to Leo, who reminded us all that you should always dress for the success you want, even at a barbecue. The entire backyard erupted into a cheerful round of applause and good-natured cheering. Leo raised his own glass in return, feeling a profound sense of relief washing over his shoulders. He had survived the ultimate wardrobe nightmare, turned a major blunder into a massive professional win, and made more friends in 4 hours than most people do in 4 months. He walked back to the lawn chair, picked up his tuxedo jacket, and smiled as he walked toward the gate, ready to finally head home.
Leo sat at his kitchen counter the next morning, holding a hot cup of coffee and staring at his phone. He hesitated for a long moment, his thumb hovering over the screen, feeling a familiar knot of anxiety in his stomach. He finally tapped the icon to open the team's weekend group chat, bracing himself for the worst. The screen immediately exploded with dozens of new notifications, unread messages, and media files. Leo held his breath and began scrolling through the conversation history from the previous evening. Instead of cruel jokes or mean comments, the chat was filled with hilarious, high-quality photos of him from the party. There was a photo of Leo standing confidently next to Arthur Vance with a caption that read, "Corporate Takeover in Progress." Another picture showed Leo with his sleeves rolled up, intensely focused during the ping-pong game, labeled "The Tuxedo Assassin Strikes Again." Below the photos, his coworkers had left a long stream of positive comments, laughing emojis, and thumbs-up stickers. Marcus had written, "Leo, absolute legend for saving that client meeting while covered in fruit punch." Chloe added, "Best-dressed employee in company history, no contest." Even Mr. Harrison had dropped a message into the chat, writing, "See everyone on Monday, casual attire allowed, unless you are Leo." Leo let out a loud, genuine laugh that echoed through his quiet apartment, the last bit of his worry completely vanishing. He realized that his biggest fear, making a mistake and being judged by others, had actually been his greatest opportunity. By refusing to run away and learning to laugh at himself, he had turned a social disaster into an unforgettable victory. He set his coffee cup down, smiled at his phone, and began typing a witty reply to his new friends.
Leo put his phone down and looked at his tuxedo jacket, which was hanging on the back of his kitchen chair. The white shirt still had faint pink spots from the fruit punch, and the fabric smelled slightly like charcoal smoke. But as he looked at it, he didn't feel embarrassed anymore. He realized that human beings care far less about perfection than they do about authenticity. Showing up in the wrong outfit was a mistake, but staying, laughing at himself, and helping a colleague was what people actually remembered. With a smile, Leo picked up his coffee and looked forward to walking into the office on Monday morning, knowing that no matter what he wore, he had already found his fit. And that is the end of the wrong outfit. Leo went from experiencing a total social nightmare to becoming the absolute legend of the office, all because he chose to lean into his mistake instead of running away. In real life, we all face moments where we feel out of place, but just like Leo, the best thing we can do is stay confident and laugh it off. Now, let's look at a few powerful English expressions we saw in today's story that you can use in your own daily conversations. We heard the phrasal verb blend in, which means to look or act like everyone else so you don't stand out. We also saw the idiom miss the memo, which native speakers use when they don't get a piece of information that everyone else seems to know. And finally, my favorite expression from this story, lean into it. This means to accept an awkward or difficult situation with confidence instead of trying to fight it or hide from it. Which of these expressions was your favorite? Have you ever shown up to an event completely underdressed or overdressed? Drop your comments below and share your own stories with the community. I read every single one of them. You can find all the vocabulary of the story down below in the description box. If you enjoyed this video and want to keep improving your English through real-life stories, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Thank you so much for watching. Keep practicing your English, and I will see you in the next story. Goodbye.